I'm joined by Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, the Talking Feds podcast. Make sure you subscribe to both. Harry Litman's been inside the Trump criminal trial each and every day, so he's got a firsthand perspective of what's going on. Harry, one of the things that I've been observing following your coverage, the coverage of sources, other sources I have in the courtroom, other reporters who are posting is, look, Donald Trump's lawyers in this case, going into this case, had pretty solid reputations. This is not like Alina Habba or lawyers like that. These were lawyers with good pedigrees, with good reputations. But at least by my observations, they seem to be doing a lot of things wrong, putting on Robert Costello at the end seemed to be a total disaster. Even the way they handled the cross-examination of Stormy, the cross-examination of Michael Cohen, just having it drag on and on and on when they could have went in and out. It just seemed to me not just unforced errors, but pretty crappy lawyering in this specific case. So I wonder if, from your perspective, with all of your experience, what did you observe there? Because that's what it was. That's what it seemed to me to be a little bit. It seems surprising.
Ben, I think that's really trenchant and true. And there is a factor. I don't think they were just stumbling, but at least some of the problems were because of their difficult client. You've been involved, or Mark Garagos, a big shot defense lawyer. It's you got a big famous defendant and you say, sit the F down. I'm going to tell you how to save your butt and don't try to, tell me otherwise. Can't do that with Trump. So Bob Costello, by all accounts, debacle, triple debacle, given how asinine he was. That seems to have been Trump's call. You got one substantive witness, and they wanted it to be Bob Costello, who just underscored the kind of mob-like dynamic with Trump of trying to keep Cohen from cooperating. And likewise, the whole stuff with Stormy, he's insisting that they have to say, I didn't have sex with her, which you don't need to defend the case, and puts him at odds with every other witness, makes it a much harder uphill climb. But I was really struck by this. You're right. They are not. Alina Habba, by the way, was in the room. One of the interesting things being in the room with the the increasing entourage of Trump, kind of supporters and the motley crew. I was right behind Boris Epstein most days. It was weird. You've been in courtrooms, like a good cross-examination, beautiful thing, work of art. You go fast, you keep the rhythm, you always control the witness and have them be, having only one answer. And this was for the big witnesses. They did it with Cohen, they did it with Stormy, and in a small way it happened with Costello also. The defense was meandering. They were asking question after question that wasn't going to be a clear hit or miss, and they missed more than they hit. They never developed. They asked a lot of objectionable questions, and so their rhythm was repeatedly arrested, and so they never got that kind of totally forceful electric feeling of a good cross-examination where the jury is wrapped and like all of a sudden the floor is being, the rug's being pulled out from under the witness. They would have some hits. So you saw in the big media coverage about the one call that it looks like Cohen maybe had wrong. Maybe he was also talking to Schiller as well as Trump. It sort of passed. Cohen was very well prepared and both, seemed, here's something that helped to be in the room. It wasn't just that he, answered things calmly, but his manner. He listened or appeared to listen to the question, probably each one he'd heard, 2,000 times. And he, his manner was really together, and the jury was pretty intent on him. that was something about being in the room. But it just, they make a general generic comparative judgment, who's lying and who's telling the truth. And it came through with Cohen. It came through with Stormy Daniels, who's hardly unblemished as a witness. Same with David Pecker, who's something of like a rogue or rapscallion, a New York figure, but his story hung together. Anyway, the feel in the courtroom was that was going in smoothly. And yes, when they really had important examinations to pursue, they not only had but only a few points scored, but much more importantly, it wasn't kind of together and crisp and rhythmic. And often they asked questions they didn't know the answer to. Costello, their last question was just objection sustained. Michael Cohen, the last question was, and they like built to this. You want him to lose for your financial interest, and Cohen was like, "Well, no, actually, if he wins the trial, it's better for me. I make more money." And then, the big play hadn't happened, and that was it. No further questions. So yeah, the overall kind of pace, professionalism, crispness of the examinations just. They weren't there.
Donald Trump posted on Friday, he says, the bookkeeping error that I am being incorrectly and unconstitutionally prosecuted for is the fact that a bookkeeper innocently and correctly called a legal expense paid to a lawyer a legal expense. In even simpler words, I called a legal expense a legal expense. What the hell else would you call it? But here's the thing. That's not the defense that they were putting on. They didn't call this mysterious bookkeeper to take the stand and say, hey, bookkeeper, well, yeah, I made this error and I made this big mistake. The prosecution called Jeff McConney, who went through the handwritten notes about grossing it up, making it clear it wasn't a legal expense. It was a reimbursement, and how you got to the $420,000 number. To your point, Harry, there didn't even seem to be a defense. There wasn't a theme of here's what happened. I guess in the opening, they tried to make it seem like, well, actually what this $420,000 was for legitimate legal services that Michael Cohen was performing. But then they tried to attack Cohen as though he went rogue, which seems to undermine the thing that they were saying in the opening. So to me, it just seemed all over the place. Like, what is your defense here? And there didn't seem to be one other than this is messy. Don't believe anything. There's a bunch of wild witnesses and people here with crazy backgrounds. So I don't know. Don't believe anything you hear. That seems to be. What are they even going to say when they close? What are they going to say when they close based on how meandering this has been?
This is the key point and the most, important point. They're just from the start, the prosecution had a story to tell and they structured it well. And it was a good decision to start with Pecker. And it really, they carried it through. And similar to what I was just talking about, the defense took pot shots, but they never seem to have a counter narrative. By the way, these were legal services, and really, he is going to get totally lacerated in the closing arguments. The government goes second. It's a little bit different from federal court defense than government. And remember when Mr. Blanche told you thus and so? And, he's going to totally have egg on his face with no way to sort of wipe it off. But I think your point, Ben, is the most important. Under the law, reasonable doubt is reasonable doubt. But under the way juries work, you want a counter narrative. It could have been, I was just worried about Melania, and that's why the whole thing happened. But that was really blown out of the water in any of several ways, including, by the way, her never once having been in the courtroom. But some story, some narrative. They may be, you know, bookkeeping, you're right. They had no evidence for anything. Bob Costello gave them no evidence for anything. The only kind of suggestion that I think kind of survives going into closing is he multitasks and maybe he doesn't always pay attention. At least that was offered, but of course contradicted by every witness in the book, including Hope Hicks, the unimpeachable, you know, Hope Hicks, who cried, but when she had to put the knife in, but she did, that says, no, he pays attention to everything. Oh, in his own words and from his own books and the like. So I don't see a story, and a jury wants a story. There's a story on one side and not a story on the other. To me, that's the basic dynamic of the trial as it now stands going into Tuesday.
You know, that lawyer Takapina, who was on the legal team, who left the legal team, he's probably sitting back right now feeling that he made the right move. And the $5 million verdict against Donald Trump in the first E. Jean Carroll case, in retrospect, seems like a pretty successful job, all things considered,
right,
that Takapina ended up doing for him.
You know, supposedly, and it wouldn't surprise me, there's been huge tension within the trial camp, and in particular, so Susan Necheles, who's a well-regarded lawyer, seems not to have signed important motions and generally to be very crosswise with Trump. The sort of body language looks quite bad, but she's someone who, it's a corollary of actually being a good lawyer, has to think about, you know, her professional reputation emerging relatively intact. Nothing wrong with representing the most reviled client, including Donald Trump. But, you know, Trump eats his lawyers for lunch and then doesn't pay them to boot. And, you know, everything he touches dies, and that includes his lawyers. So you can see that, and there's a lot of scuttlebutt suggesting that, you know, they're thinking about this and trying to just have their professional reputation survive relatively intact.
Well, we've said before, MAGA stands for Make Attorneys Get Attorneys. It also may stand for Make Attorneys Get New Jobs. It doesn't actually have a neat acronym right there, but there you have it. Harry, thanks so much. Everybody, make sure you subscribe for real to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Harry's channel, Talking Feds, is so close to hitting that 200,000 mark. I really want to see it hit that mark as soon as he can. So make sure you all hit subscribe as soon as you can. Harry, thanks as always.
And we can't bury the lead, Ben Meiselas. Shake the hand, metaphorically, of a married man. Since last time we talked, you've tied the knot. Congratulations to you and your bride.
Thank you, Harry, so much. And thank you to all the Meidas Mighty. We appreciate you.
Real quick, Meta just changed their algorithm to suppress political content. Please follow our Instagram at MeidasTouch right now as we head towards 400,000 followers so you don't miss a beat.